Shalom, shalom. First and foremost, I want to give all praises, honor, and glory to my power, Yahweh, Ba'ashem, Yahweh Shai, Ba'ashem Kakadash. Double honors to the elders and apostles of Great Millstone who rule well and teach well, being great example to our younger brothers. Peace and blessings to those who elect, Lord willing to be a part of that number. I'm the brother Quadar from Eugene, Grand Chicago, coming back with another video. This video is going to be a history episode, I believe 64, 65, something around there. Okay, and going into how Alexander, the Great, or Alexander the Creep, all right, the Amalekite, all right, read about himself, in the book of Daniel. Now this was something written in a Josephus, and going into how he knew he was destined to defeat the Persians, okay, at Bear, as it says in Daniel the 7th chapter. Okay, so I got this article here, and I also got the Josephus. I'll read a little bit of both of them, and our Lord one is edifying. I want to say Yahweh Shemel Shai, Babak Shah, Shalak, Rachak, Wadashka, Labanah, Bachiar, which means Yahweh Shemel Shai, please send Holy Spirit to build the elect, and Lord willing this lesson is edifying. Okay, so let's start right here. All right, let me see. Actually, as a matter of fact, let's just read. That's the same. Okay, yeah, let's just read it straight from the Josephus. The antiquity of the Israelites. Okay, it says, 1 second. All right, it says, about this time it was that Philip, king of Macedon, was treacherously assaulted and slain at Agae by Pausanias, the son of Cerastus, who was derived from the family of Oreste, and son Alexander succeeded him in the kingdom, who, passing over the Hellespont, overcame the generals of Darius's army in a battle fought at Granicum. So he marched over Lydia and subdued Ionia and overran Caria and fell upon the places of Pamphylia, as he has been related elsewhere. As has been related elsewhere. But the elders of Jerusalem, being very uneasy that the brother of Jaddua, the high priest, though married to a foreigner, should be partnered with him in the high priesthood, quarreled with him, for they esteemed this man marriage a step to such as should be desirous of transgressing about the marriage of strange wives, and that this will be the beginning of a mutual society with foreigners. It says, although the offense of some about marriages and their having married wives that were not of their own country have been the occasion of the former captivity and of the miseries they then underwent, so they commanded Manasseh to divorce his wife or not to approach the altar, the high priest himself joining with the people in their indignation against his brother and driving him away from the altar, whereupon Manasseh came to his father-in-law Sanballat and told him that although he loved his daughter Nakaso, yet he was not willing to be deprived of his sacerdotal dignity on her account, which was the principal dignity in their nation, and always continue in the same family. And then Sanballat promised him only to preserve him the honor of his priesthood, but to procure for him the power and dignity of high priest, and he will make him a governor of all the places he himself now ruled, if he will keep his daughter for his wife. He also told him further that he will build him a temple like that at Jerusalem upon Mount Gerizim, which is the highest of all the mountains that are in Samaria. All right, now let me this why 3:13. Yep. It says this the third one. It says, about this time it was that Darius heard of how Alexander had passed over the Hellespont and had beaten his lieutenants in the battle at Granicum. Okay. Yeah, but it says, and was proceeding further, whereupon he gathered together an army of horse and foot, and determined that he will meet the Macedonians before they should assault and conquer all Asia. So he passed over the river Euphrates and came over Taurus, the Cilician mountain, and at the issue of Cilicia, he waited for the enemy as ready there to give him battle, upon which Sanballat there gave to give him battle, upon which Sanballat was glad that Darius was come down, and told Manasseh that he would suddenly perform his promises to him, and this as soon as ever Darius should come back, after he had beaten his enemies. For not he only, but all those that were in Asia also, were persuaded that the Macedonians would not so much as come to battle with the Persians on account of their multitude, but the event proved otherwise than they expected. For the king joined battle with the Macedonians and was beaten, and lost a great part of his army. His mother also and his wife and children were taken captives, and he fled into Persia. So Alexander came into Syria and took Damascus, and when he had obtained Sidon, he besieged Tyre, when he sent an epistle to the Israelite high priest to send him some auxiliaries and to supply his armies with provisions, and that what presents he formerly sent to Darius, he will now send to him, and choose the friendship of the Macedonians, and that he should never repent of so doing. But the high priest answered him, the messengers, that he had given his oath to Darius not to bear arm against him. So he gave him his word. Okay, it says, and he said that he would not transgress this while Darius was in the land of the living, right? So as long as he was alive. Okay, it says, upon hearing this, Alexander was very angry, and though he determined not to leave Tyre, which was just ready to be taken, and yet as soon as he had taken it, he threatened that he would make an expedition against the Israelite high priest, and through him to teach all men to whom they must keep their oaths. So when he had, with a good deal of pains during the siege, taken Tyre and had settled its affairs, he came to the city of Gaza and besieged both the city and him and him that was governor of the garrison, whose name was Babamis. But Sanballat, though he had now gotten a proper opportunity to make his attempt, so he renounced Darius, and taking with him 7,000 of his own subjects, he came to Alexander, and finding him beginning the siege of Tyre. Okay, it says, he said unto him that he delivered up to him these men who came out of places under his dominion, and did gladly accept. So like it's so little, you get lost a little bit. And did gladly accept of him of his lord instead of Darius. So he switched sides. So when Alexander had received him kindly, Sanballat thereupon took courage and spake to him about his present affair. He told him that he had a son-in-law, Manasseh, who was brother to the high priest Jediah, and that there were many others of his own nation now with him that were desirous to have a temple in a place subject to him, that it would be for the king's advantage to have the strength of the Israelites divided into two parts, lest when the nation is of one mind and united upon any attempt for innovation to prove troublesome to the kings, as they have formerly proved to the king of Assyria. And that's how these heathens think of us, man. That's why they keep us divided as a nation. All right, hey, read the book of Ezra when they were complaining to the Persian king. Okay, it says, whereupon Alexander gave Sanballat leave so to do, who used the utmost diligence and built the temple, and made Manasseh the high priest, and deemed it a great reward that his daughter's children should have that dignity. But when the 7 months of the siege of Tyre were over, and the 2 months of the siege of Gaza, Sanballat died. Now Alexander, when he had taken Gaza, made haste to go up to Jerusalem, and Jediah the high priest, when he heard that, was in an agony and under terror, as not knowing how he should meet the Macedonians, since the king was displeased at his foregoing disobedience. He therefore ordained that the people should make supplication, and should join with him in offering sacrifice to Yahweh, whom he besought to protect the nation, and to deliver them from the perils that were coming upon them. Whereupon Yahweh warned him in a dream, which came upon him, that he had offered sacrifice, that he should take courage and adorn the city and open the gates, that the rest shall appear in white garments, but that he and the priests should meet the king in habits proper to their order, without the dread of any ill consequences, which the providence of Yahweh will prevent. Upon which, when he rose from his sleep, he greatly rejoiced, and declared to all the warnings he had received from Yahweh, according to which dream he acted entirely, and so waited for the coming of the king. All right, it's number 5. It says, and when he had understood that he was not far from the city, he went out in procession with the priests and a multitude of the citizens. The processions was venerable, and the manner of it different from that of other nations. It reached to a place called Saphah, which name translated into Greek signifies a prospect, for you have thence a prospect both of Jerusalem and a temple. And when the Phoenicians and the Chaldeans that follow him, though they should have liberty to plunder the city and torment the high priest to death, when the king's displeasure fairly promised them, the very reverse Salaki of it happened. For Alexander, when he saw the multitude at a distance in white garments, while the priest stood clothed with fine linen, and the high priest in purple and scarlet, golden plate whereupon the name of Yahweh was engraved, he approached by himself and adorned the name, and first saluted the high priest. The Israelites also did altogether with one voice salute Alexander, showing you the king's heart is in the hand of Yahweh Bashem Shai, as it says in Proverbs 21:1. Okay, made him at peace with him. You know, Alexander respected the Israelites. Okay, it says it says salute Alexander and encompass him about, whereupon the king of Syria and the rest were surprised at what Alexander had done and supposed him disordered in his mind. But it was the Lord moving his spirit to do so. However, Paramenio alone went up to him and asked him how it came to pass when all other adored him, he should adore the high priest of the Israelites. To whom he replied, I did not adore him, but that Yahweh, who have honored him with his high priesthood. For I saw this very person in a dream in his very habit when I was at Dios in Macedonia, who, when I was concerning with myself how I might obtain the dominion of Asia, exhorted me to make no delay, but to boldly pass over to see thither, for that he would conduct my army and would give me the dominion over the Persians. Whence it is that, having seen no other in the habit, and now seeing this person in it, and remembering that vision and that exhortation which I had in my dream, I believe that I bring this army under the divine conduct, and should therewith conquer Darius, and destroy the power of the Persians, that all things will succeed according to what is in my own mind. Because it was prophecy that the Greeks had to take down the Persians. Okay. It says, all right, it says, and when he went up to into the temple, he offered sacrifice to Yahweh, which I don't believe that part. You know, you gotta chew the meat, spit out the bones a little bit. You know, when it comes to these things, man. You know, it says, and when the book of Daniel was showed him, wherein Daniel declared that one of the Greeks should destroy the empire of the Persians, he supposed that himself was the person intended. And as he was then glad, he dismissed the multitude for the present. But the next day he called them to him and bid them ask what favors they pleased of him. Whereupon the high priest desired that they might enjoy the laws of their forefathers and might pay no tribute on the 7th year. He granted all they desired, and when they entreated him that he would permit the Israelites in Babylon and Media to enjoy their own laws also, he willingly promised to do hereafter what they desired. And when he said to the multitude that if any of them would enlist themselves in his army on this condition, that they should continue under the law of their forefathers and live according to them, he was willing to take them with him. Many were ready to accompany in his wars. So when Alexander had thus settled matters at Jerusalem, he led his army into the neighboring cities, when all the inhabitants to whom he came received him with great kindness, the Samaritans, which those were heathens. Okay, I'm gonna get into that. Okay, it says who the then Shechem, for their metropolis, a city situate in Mount Gerizim, and inhabited by the apostates of the Israelite nation, seeing that Alexander had so greatly honored the Israelites, determined to profess themselves Israelites. All right, for such is the disposition of the Samaritans, as we have already elsewhere declared, that when the Israelites are in adversity, they deny that they are of kin to them, and then they confess the truth. But when they perceive that some good fortune has befallen them, they immediately pretend to have communion with them, saying that they belong to them and derive their genealogy from their posterity of Joseph, Ephraim, and Manasseh. Accordingly, they made their address to the king with splendor, and showed great alacrity in meeting him at a little distance from Jerusalem. And where Alexander had commanded them, the Shechemites approached him to him, taking with them the troops that Sanballat had sent him. and they desired that he will come to their city and do honor to their temple also, to whom he promised that when he will return, he will come to them. And when they petitioned that he will remit the tribute of the 7th year to them, because they did not sow thereon, he asked who they were that made such a petition. And when they said that they were Hebrews, but had the name of Zidonians living at Shechem, he asked them again whether they were Israelites. And when they said they were not Israelites, it was to the Israelites, said he. So he's like, hey, I gave this to the Israelites, man, not y'all fucking heathens. So he knew it. They try to play a trick on him. It says that it was to the Israelites, said he, that I granted their privilege. However, when I return, I am thoroughly informed by you of this matter. I will do what I shall think prosper. And this matter, he took leave to Shechenites, but ordered that the troops of Sanballat should follow him into Egypt. Therefore, he desired to give them lands, which he did a little after in Tobias, when he ordained them to guard that country. Okay. Let me see. Now, when Alexander was dead, the government was parted among his successors, right? Okay, I'm going to get into that. It says, now, when Alexander was dead, the governor was parted among his successors, but the temple upon Mount Gerizim remained. And if anyone were accused by those of Jerusalem of having eaten things common, or have broken the Sabbath, or any other crime of the like nature, he fled away to the Shechemites, and said that he was accused unjustly about the time it was that Jediah the high priest died, and Onias his son took the high priesthood. This was the state of the affairs of the people of Jerusalem at the time, and we understand that Onias was a righteous man. Okay, this is 2 Maccabees 3 and verse 1. Now, when the holy city was inhabited with all peace, and the laws were kept very well, because of the godliness of Onias the high priest, and his hatred of wickedness. So he was a righteous man. Okay, now let's grab this Daniel 7 and 1. 1 second. This is the book of Daniel 7 and verse 1. It says, in the first year of Belshazzar, king of Babylon. 1 second. There we go. It says, in the first year of Belshazzar, king of Babylon, Daniel had a dream and vision of his head upon his bed. Then he wrote the dream and told the sum of the matters. Daniel spake and said, I saw in a vision by night, and behold, the four winds of the heaven strove upon the great sea, and four great beasts came up from the sea, diverse one from another. So this was the vision he was seeing. It says the first was like a lion and had eagle wings. Okay, that's talking about the Babylonian Empire. Okay, it says, and I beheld till the wings thereof were plucked, and it was lifted up from the earth, and made stand upon a feet as a man, and a man's heart was given it. Okay, that's talking about the Babylonian Empire. Let's go to verse 5. All right, it says, and behold, another beast, a second like to a bear, all right, which is the Medo-Persian Empire, all right, because the Persians and the Medes both took down Babylon. Okay, the Babylonian Empire, it says, I beheld, I'm reading verse 4. Verse 5, it says, and it raised up itself on one side, right, because the Persians were stronger than the Medes. They ultimately just took over the whole thing. It says, and it had 3 ribs in the mouth of it, between the teeth of it. Okay, and we know that's Babylon, Lydia, and Egypt. Okay, it says, and they said thus unto it, arise, devour much flesh. Okay, a Persian empire had the most provinces. Okay, it says, verse 6, after this, behold, and lo, another like a leopard, which had upon the back of it 4 wings of a fowl. The beast had also 4 heads. All right, and we understand that's talking about Alexander the Great. All right, we call him Alexander the Creep, the Agagite. All right, the Amalekite, the Macedonian, the Edomite. Okay, he famously wore the leopard on his head, and that's how you know this is prophecy, man. All right, no other the scriptures, it has the most historical facts. Okay. It says, which had upon the back of it 4 wings of a fowl, and those were his 4 generals, which ruled after he passed away, because they killed both of his sons. All right, you had Cassander, Lysimachus, Ptolemy, and Seleucus. Okay. And I believe it was Cassander that tried to make peace between the generals, and they put his ass to death, man. They were fighting between each other. These Edomites are bugged out, man. You had the Ptolemaic Empire where that bitch Cleopatra came from. You got a lot of dumbass niggas say Cleopatra was a so-called African woman. No, that bitch was an Edomite, man. She came from the Ptolemaic dynasty. Okay? But that was the point. All right, verse 6, that leopard, all right, that took down the Persian Empire was Alexander. Okay? There's no getting around that, man. You cannot get around it. Okay? And it was prophecy, man. Okay, now I wanted to get into the Samaritans, because those were heathens at the time. Okay, because you got to remember at that time, that was around the time of the Hellenistic era. The Northern Kingdom were already in the Americas. All right, you had a very small batch of Northern Kingdom still around. Okay, but predominantly they were in the Americas, man. The 2 Kings 17 and verse 5, and I'm gonna read all the way down. It says, then the king of Assyria came up throughout all the land and went up to Samaria and besieged it 3 years. In the 9th year of Hosea, the king of Assyria took Samaria and carried Israel away into Assyria and placed them in Halah and in Habor, the river of Gozan, and in the cities of the Medes. For it was so that the children of Israel had sinned against the Lord their power, which had brought them up out of the land of Egypt from under the hand of Pharaoh king of Egypt, and had feared of the powers. All right, feared of the gods, man. Jacob's going off, committing idolatry, and walked in the statutes of the heathen, whom the Lord cast out from before the children of Israel, and of the kings of Israel, which they had made. And the children of Israel did secretly those things that were not right against the Lord their power, and they built them high places in all their cities, from the tower of their watchmen to the fenced cities. And they set them up images and groves in every high hill and under every green tree. And there they burnt incense in all the high places, as did the heathens whom the Lord carried away before them, and wrought wicked things to provoke the Lord to anger. So Jacob's going to fuck off, man. Okay, it says, for they serve idols, whereof the Lord had said unto them, ye shall not do this thing. Yet the Lord testified against Israel and against Judah by all the prophets and by all the seers. Okay, saying, turn ye from your evil ways, and keep my commandments and my statutes according to all the law which I commanded your father, which I sent to you by my servants the prophets. Notwithstanding, they will not hear, but harden their necks like the necks of their fathers, that did not believe in the Lord their power. All right. And they rejected his statutes and his covenant that he made with their fathers, and his testimonies which he testified against them. And they followed vanity and became vain, and went after the heathen that were round about them, concerning whom Yahweh had charged them, that they should not do like them. Okay. So, the Lord literally said not to be like the heathens, man. All right. They're the heathens for a reason. He gave us the law, statutes, commandments. All right. That's literally why they're the heathens. Literally. Okay, it says, and they left all the commandments of the Lord their power, and made them molten images, and even 2 calves, and made a grove, and worship all the hosts of heaven, and served Baal. And they caused their sons and their daughters to pass through the fire, and use divination and enchantments, and sold themselves to do evil in the sight of Yahweh, to provoke him to anger. And this is what they're doing to this day. Therefore the Lord was very angry with Israel, and removed them out of his sight. There was none left but the tribe of Judah only. Okay. It says, also Judah kept not the commandments. Salagia. Yep. I'm going to keep reading down to verse 24. Yep. It says, and Judah kept not the commandments of the Lord their power, but walked in the statutes of Israel, which they made. And the Lord, Yahweh Bashem El-Shai, rejected all the seed of Israel, and afflicted them, and delivered them into the hand of the spoilers, until he had cast them out of his sight. For he rent Israel from the house of David, and they made Jeroboam the son of Nebat king. And Jeroboam drove Israel from following Yahweh, and made them sin a great sin. For the children of Israel walked in all the sins of Jeroboam, which he did. They departed not from them, until the Lord removed Israel out of his sight, as he had said by all his servants, the prophets. So was Israel carried away out of their own land unto Syria until this day. All right, so the northern kingdom, okay, they were taken into the Syrian captivity. Okay, it says, and the king of Assyria brought men from Babylon and from Cutha and from Awa and from Hamath and from Sepharim and placed them in the cities of Samaria. So these are heathens instead of Israelites in that city. Okay, instead of the children of Israel, and they possessed Samaria and dwelt in the cities thereof. That's why you see whenever something benefited Israel, they would claim to be Israel. And when something was not benefiting Israel, they would reject Israel. You know, showing you they were heathens, man. You know, and it goes along with that woman in the well. Okay, that was talking to Yahweh Shai. All right, give me 1 second. Let me see. I probably skipped over it, Salaki. John 5. Might be John 4. Yep. Yep. Here we go. Yep. John 4 and verse 5. Then cometh he to a city of Samaria, which is called Sigbar, near to the parcel of ground that Jacob gave to his son Joseph. Now Jacob's well was there. Yahweh Shai, therefore being wearied in his journey, sat thus on a well, and it was about the 6th hour. There cometh a woman of Samaria to draw water. Yahweh Shai said unto her, give me to drink. And this was a heathen. For his disciples were gone away into the city to buy meat. Then saith the woman of Samaria unto him, how is it that you, being an Israelite, ask drink of me, which am a woman of Samaria? For the Israelites have no dealings with the Samaritans. And why is that? That's a telltale sign right there. Yahweh Shai answered and said unto her, if thou knowest the gift of Yahweh, and who it is that saith to thee, give me to drink, thou wouldst have asked of him, and he would have given thee living water. The woman saith unto him, Sir, thou hast nothing to draw with, and the well is deep. From whence then hast thou that living water? Art thou greater than our father Jacob, which gave us the well, and drank thereof himself, and his children, and his cattle? Yahweh Shai answered and said unto her, whosoever drink of this water shall thirst again, but whosoever drinketh of the water that I shall give him shall never thirst. But the water that I shall give him shall be in him a well of water spring up into everlasting life, which is the word. Okay. It says, the woman said unto him, Sir, give me this water that I thirst not, neither come hither to draw. She didn't receive it. Yahweh Shai said unto her, Go, call thy husband, and come hither. The woman answered and said, I have no husband. Yahweh Shai said unto her, Thou hast well said, I have no husband, for thou hast had 5 husbands, and he whom thou now hast is not thy husband, and that saidest thou truly. All right. The woman said unto him, Sir, I perceive that thou art a prophet. Okay. Our fathers worship in this mountain, and ye say that in Jerusalem is the place where men ought to worship. Yahweh Shai said unto her, Woman, believe me, the hour cometh when ye shall neither in this mountain nor yet at Jerusalem worship the Father. Ye worship, ye know not what. We know what we worship, for salvation is of the Israelites, man. You know, that was the point. She was a heathen, proving that, you know, those Samaritans were heathens at that time, man. Though the kingdom was removed from that land. Okay, they were taken to the Syrian Empire. Okay, and after that Syrian captivity, and after that captivity, they came to the Americas. Okay, you had a small batch still with the southern kingdom or whatnot. You know, you had Anna the prophetess, all right, of the tribe of Asher. You know, it was a very small batch of northern kingdom stayed with the southern kingdom, but majority of them was in the Americas, man. You know, so Lord willing, this is edifying. I'll close it out there. I want to give all praise, honor, and glory to Yahweh Bashim Shai, Bashim Kakodash. Double honor to the apostles, the elders, great millstone. Peace and blessings to all for elect. Lord willing, will be a part of that number. Shalom, Kwame Sharala, Wa Abad Babal.